want to feel like there is a vacuum. Because the president is not interfering, then we can interfere. No, when we say it, there should be no interference. It means not from a president, not from any other source. Whoever they are and however they think their weight is important.
This is the journey to one Africa.
So, Mr. President, let's focus on the rule of law, the democratic space, because some of the civil society group says your propulsion to power was as a result of civil society not liking what is going on and they want things to change. And they are saying that some of the promises that you have made, you are yet to keep. They said protesters have been shot with tear gas, and that the President Chakwera, they know, as a defender of human rights, is allowing the police to use excessive force to dispel those who are venting displeasure with some issues that they are concerned about. Mr. President, how do you respond to such concerns?
First of all, you must understand that Malawi has a vision, Malawi 2063. And within that vision, we have a 10-year implementation plan. And within that plan, we have a recovery plan because of these shocks, including COVID-19. Now, if you look at what is happening, it is following that blueprint. If you are talking about things that need to happen next year, you can't have them happen this year. But you will find that those things that we are detailing following that plan, they are happening even as we speak. In fact, we have changed even some laws to make sure that those who want to speak against the leadership, they are free to do that. Sedition laws, we scrap them, because I am one that says everybody needs to be free. We're not talking about certain things that have gone wrong when people want to do stuff. This is according to our Constitution and according to law, and I still stand by the law. So we will give everyone, and we have given everyone, the freedom. Now, if you go back to the premise that says, well, you know, the civil society are the ones who did this. Now, you must remember it is a confluence of issues. When I went to court, there was a real issue, and it was not against government. It was against a particular institution that had mismanaged elections. And the people were saying, no, this thing needs to be looked at. Now, I went to court, and in court, they do not talk about emotional issues. They talk about evidential issues. And the courts said there had been irregularities, let there be another election. It is an election that Malawians were involved in voting that put me in the place that I'm in today. So it is a confluence of all of these things. And that's what everybody needs to understand.
So, Mr. President, let's look at the fight against corruption, which you promised Malawians you were going to fight. Your critics are saying the fight against corruption has not been robust enough. Some people are saying when investigations are going on, they are politically motivated. So, Mr. President, what assurances are you giving the people of Malawi that, one, you are committed to the fight against corruption, that people who have embezzled or committed financial wrongdoings or malfeasance will be dealt with irrespective of their political affiliations or societal status?
Good question. What I can tell you is this. When I was sworn in as president, the first thing I said is, let, for example, institutions operate in accordance with their mandate by law. And therefore, we would not have influence as to what they need to do. Let them follow the law. I also made sure that there is funding. And the Anti-Corruption Bureau, for example, had never been funded as much as we have done to make sure that they operate freely, because we want them to do their job without interference. And this is what they are doing even now. People who feel like, oh, this is political, or this is politically motivated and so forth, they might want to say that because they are not fully comprehending the manner in which these institutions are functioning. Some people might even want to feel like there is a vacuum. Because the president is not interfering, then we can interfere. No, when we say it, there should be no interference. It means not from a president, not from any other source. Whoever they are and however they think their weight is important.
So are you saying the president is not putting pressure on the Anti-Corruption Bureau to go after anybody?
Oh no, you can ask them that. And they will tell you that I never do stuff like that.
So, Mr. President, let's look at the staple of Malawi, maize or corn. You talked about Hurricane or Cyclone Freddy that devastated farmlands and all that. There were reports of shortage. How are you dealing with it? Because some of the civil society groups are saying that there appears to be shortage and the effort of the government to have it available to people appears not to be expedited, or it's too slow. Do you think their criticisms are fair?
You know, again, food is extremely important. And the staple is mainly maize. And it's grown across the country. Even though we have rice, we have cassava and others. And when we came in, we had a program, which we still run, called AIP. That's Affordable Inputs Program. We would provide seed at reduced prices. We would provide fertilizer at reduced prices. And the first year we did this, we had a crop, a yield that had surpassed any of the last 5 years. And then we entered into COVID stuff, where everything was reduced in terms of how people work. Then there is war in Eastern Europe. All of a sudden, supply chain issues were affected, and fertilizers prices went up. Fuel prices went up, and food prices went up. And then, because of the shocks, like I have mentioned, last year we had Ana and Gombe, and then this year Freddy. The production then was less. And because of fertilizer challenges being afforded in time to the people, the production was less. This year's projection and actual figures have shown that 150,000 metric tons are short of the 4.7 million that usually, with the new system, we were bringing to the table. So what we have done is introduce a new concept of mega farms and winter cropping. And some of those farms have already begun to produce in large scale maize. As we speak, some other maize will be ready for harvest in a month and a half. All of that to mitigate this. Now, some of the maize that we had, now we have released through UDMARC. This is our Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation released that throughout the country. And where people had reason to complain, because they did have reason to complain. The prices now have come down, they are stabilized, and I had members of parliament tell me that in their places, the maize is now available, even in opposition areas, because we said, let's take maize to every part of the country. We will make sure that whatever was the shortfall, we will also, through winter cropping and irrigation, make sure everything before November, when the lean season, because that is the planting season, waiting for a harvest in 3-4 months later. This is a time when there's usually problems with food. We will be ready for that as well. So these things government is working on and already providing the solutions.
Mr. President, you are aware about some of the challenges Africa is having in terms of coups and all that. Talking about peace and stability on the continent, when you meet your fellow heads of state, particularly in West Africa and Central Africa where some of these things have happened, what do you tell them? How do you engage them in terms of ensuring that the tenets of democracy is embraced, one, and two, that the people will be free enough to decide who their leaders are?
Actually, on the sideline of this UN General Assembly, I attended a Democracy Delivers meeting, and I expressed my heartfelt sentiments and concern about what is happening in West Africa mainly because of the frequency and the numbers of coups, or like we say, unconstitutional changes of government. For our part, we have wanted to serve as an example of what a democratic process and system should be. When we talk about at the AU level, we speak about these things. When we talk at a regional level, Malawi belongs to a Southern Africa Development Community, SADC. We speak about these things and how we need to demonstrate that the will of the people should be respected. However, you also need to understand that we need to look at root causes of many of these things. When the people we lead and those of us in leadership seem to have a dislocation of purpose. And why? Because sometimes we have influences that are within and without with regard to certain of the resources we have in our countries. And when people perceive us not caring enough, then they feel like an alternative may be better. And it may not be better at all, and so they want to change again, and that is a vicious cycle. So we need to address some of these things. Africa is a great continent with so many resources in terms of natural resources as well as human resources. The youth, the continent is young and greatly creative and innovative. Now we must use that dividend for the benefit of everyone. And so you ask me what I tell them. We demonstrate by what we do and what we have done. And Malawi has been an example in that regard. When there is disputes, trust systems you have in place to take care of such disputes. And Malawian courts are well known worldwide as courts that independently determine issues. If we make sure that institutions in all of our republics are respected, trusted, and can be relied upon whenever there is some misunderstanding. That is the best way to practice democracy, rather than to say, we'll fight and so forth. Human lives, there's no price on them. And so we must, by all means, maintain peace and security. And so Malawi's stand is always like that. Contact and dialogue. Let's sit around the table. What is the issue? What are the issues? Can we talk about this? And these things take time, but the dividend lasts long. The other things that seem like easy solutions, the fruit of such is destructive for generations to come.
Mr. President, before we go, talking about democracy, the civil society in Malawi is very vibrant, as you know.
Yes.
You have folks like Kajoloweka and Namiwa who have been agitating. Some of them are even calling for you to resign because they said you are not moving fast enough, because they trusted in your promises and you are not doing enough. What assurances are you going to give them that indeed you are not sleeping at the wheel?
I'd love for you to come and visit Malawi, and then you will see a picture of something that's going on. I engage these folks, like you say, you know, I am a friend of civil society, and civil society has been given more space than sometimes is available in other nations. And we want to continue to do that, and to do more, and to engage. And of course, they have a right to say president should resign and stuff like that. We have a system that says we elect a president, and if he delivers or she delivers or fails to deliver, in 5 years, we elect another president. And if you have a promise by way of saying we'll do 1, 2, 3, and you have done 3 years, and maybe you have laid a foundation, if they didn't see that, how do they conclude that it's not going to be there next year? If you come to visit Malawi right now, you will see that pretty much the whole country is a construction site. We are already commissioning projects that have been done. We will be commissioning others that are being done. And we will be starting others. Like I said, when you have a 10-year implementation plan, you move according to that plan, not according to the whims of someone who feels like this should be number one. Why are you doing that? That would be my response.